All right, folks, welcome to Creatorpalooza. If you are just here, yeah, we love to hear it. If you're just here, we're going to start our conversations and panels now. Grab a drink at the bar, grab some tacos, grab another drink at the other bar. You could get your photos taken in the back, but before we do that, come fill in up front, listen to our awesome panels, and we will see you for happy hour and hangs. All right, take it away, Liz.
Yeah. Thank you, James. Isn't this a nice, cool event? Isn't this pretty cool? He did this in like 72 hours. I swear to God. Also, please grab pregnancy tests, Plan B, probiotic supplements for your vagina. If you want some, we got tons, and they're our official sponsor is Winx. They're an amazing sponsor for this panel, and you don't have to use it at South by, but it might come in handy. So we are in Texas,
Get it before they're outlawed.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming today. We are going to be doing a cool, dynamic, quick. We're not doing an hour-long panel. We're not doing that. That's too long. We're going to do a quick 30, and then we're going to open it up to all of you because we know that you are all super smart, interesting, and curious. And so prepare your questions as we're talking. What we will be talking about is the creator economy, how to be a human in 2025, how to create content when the world is falling apart and is on fire, and how to be happy through and thrive in the chaos, right? Are we ready?
Great.
Yes? Wow. Great. My name is Liz. I didn't even introduce myself. I'm a creator, journalist, author, and I'm very excited to be joined by my besties. You know when you can create a panel and just bring all of the people that you love in your life? This is what this panel is. We'll start with Sid at the other end. You're so far away. Sid Marcos is an amazing producer. She founded, I think, the first disabled-owned production company. I always say that, but I don't know if it's true, but I feel like it's true. There are not a lot of disabled-owned movies. There's not a lot of disabled creators, and we need more, and Sid is making a huge difference. She's producing a bunch of documentaries, creating a bunch of content, and is amazing. Walter Masterson is in the house. Yes, Walter. If you've seen like a conspiracy theorist like walk into a prank, it was probably Walter Masterson. He has pranked some of the worst people on earth. Matt Gaetz, I think, being one of them. I think we can all agree, no matter where we are on the political spectrum, that he deserves to be pranked. So Walter, basically thrives in chaos and creates amazing, I think, really funny and sometimes even uplifting content in very dire circumstances. And then we have Josh Burstein. I can't believe Josh. Yes, we have Josh fans. Josh is basically a therapist for creators. Truly, he was the creative director of the DNC. He worked for President Obama for many years. We missed those years. You did a great job. And he led these creator houses in swing states in the lead up to the election. And that's how we met. And he basically helps creators every day be more mentally stable and be sustainable. So we're gonna have a great conversation. Oh my God, their bios are so long. That was so long. I wanna get into questions. So Walter, we'll start with you. You walk into chaos, right? And we see, for a lot of creators or a lot of, the internet, we see the final product, right? And we see this amazing video, we see it get 10 million views, and we're like, wow, what is the pre-production process for you? Like, what do you do before you walk into a beach with Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and prank them?
Well, there's a lot of, there's writing in terms of like what, who here edits?
Who's
editor?
Editors.
If you're an editor,
yeah.
So you get it in terms of like you're living in the edit when you're shooting something. So I'm thinking like, all right, how is this going to cut together? If I only have a few seconds with someone to do a prank, do an interview, how is this going to cut together? What am I starting with? And you have to sort of guess what it is they're going to respond with. So it's like, I know a lot of the times when I'm interviewing someone, my questions are tailored around, it's kind of like a lawyer when you're interrogating someone on the stand. You're asking questions that you know the answer to. Right. It's similar to that. So it's like, all right, I know what you're going to say in response, and I'm hoping on you staying on brand when I ask you questions, as you know, the man on the street.
Yeah, and is there always like a second beat to the joke, right? Because you go in with a joke, right?
Yeah.
And do you then create a script of like, okay, this will be the second joke, this will be the third joke?
Yeah, there's like, so the best example is I went to a MAGA rally, and and this was during Pride Month. And these people were fiercely anti-Pride, and the whole joke was that I'm talking about them, but they don't know it. I'm talking about these people that wave flags and make it their whole identity. And they think I'm talking about, pride and pride flags. And I'm like, meanwhile, they're waving the flag. I'm getting them to wave the flag. I'm saying like, oh, can you imagine having something being your whole identity? Can you imagine that? Like, oh, giving kids flags to wave around. And meanwhile, like it's a mother and her daughter waving, a MAGA flag, all of these things. Then, then there's like, the beginning, middle, and end. So I'm shooting with that in mind.
Yeah.
Of like, all right, this is the opening, this is our middle. And then now it has to crescendo in like, me asking, them telling me like, I was harassed for wearing my MAGA hat. And then the follow-up question is, can you imagine being harassed just for your identity? Like, wouldn't that be awful? And then they're like, yeah, it is terrible. And I was like, thank you.
And then you leave. That's great. It's almost, even though it's a 60-second video, it's like you're treating it like a movie, right? There's still an opening. There's like 3 acts, right?
Yeah, there's a beginning, middle, end, and all that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Josh, you have worked with so many creators. Tell us the biggest mistake that creators make.
Big mistakes. I'll turn on the client or campaign first, which is always trying to pigeonhole creators into, existing broadcast standards, like do a red carpet interview and pressure them to do something that they're safer about. And they want to go viral off of something that is not spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like antithetical to everything you make. And so I think for the creators, it's usually a mistake to not understand you are the expert of your audience, and you need to protect that and have boundaries to the type of creative you're making, while a client should definitely be able to give you better guidelines and guardrails so that you have an opportunity to give better messaging strategy in your style and not just cater.
But how do you push back on the client? Because I think that's such a common problem, right? You're a creator, you're working with a client, whether they're a campaign or an organization or a brand. And you send them a script and then they like take out all the jokes, right? Or they take out the best parts and they're like, oh, and add a line about how amazing our product is. And then it kind of, it takes out the authenticity. And right? Like this isn't going to be doing well on my page. How do you push back to a client so that they do what you want?
It's tough. I mean, I think you're usually dealing with somebody who's built to mitigate risk, but then wants something same, but different. Mm-hmm. And so I would just always try to clarify what they actually want out of this. Because sadly, they're probably just buying you for audience. They're not actually all that critical or understanding. If you do jazz, they're just trying to buy sounds, and they hear you do good sounds. And so you're never going to get to a really good level of creativity necessarily. So if you got a bad client, just be ready to produce what you want and fight for that standard. Yeah.
And find out what their priorities are, right? Because sometimes, again, the goal I think is to know what they want and then what you like to do, what your audience likes, and it's like finding that intersection. And so if you know what their priorities are, then it's easier to get into it, right? As opposed to like, where you kind of keep missing each other. Okay, Sid. Hello.
Best for last.
Best friends. So Sid.
Best friends. I said best for last.
You said best for last. I heard best friend. Both are true. So you did not see your story represented pretty much anywhere. Disability is still a very underserved community, an underfunded community. Yeah. And you went out and literally created your own production company.
Right.
Yes. Can we honestly? Wow. And there's so many gatekeepers. There's so many things. I know that there were so many obstacles in the way to that. What was the hardest part about that? And how did you keep going in moments where you did want to give up?
It's a difficult question to answer because I think I'm still figuring that out right now. There's a question of thriving in the midst of doing something, and I think there's not necessarily thriving happening when you're facing so many barriers and kind of constant roadblocks to just telling a single story. I think the biggest issue that we work with, again, I started a production company called Cripple Productions, and so we have this just a name that's kind of confronting, and there is so much confrontation to do before any story can be told. I think the most difficult part about the work that we do is that we are baseline writing a counter narrative. And so every story that we want to tell, we have to first acknowledge what the story about disability is. And the problem is that there is already such a cultural symbol of what disability means, and that's that it's bad, that it's sad, and that it's an event of misfortune. So we're kind of, embracing that story, knowing that that's what people understand about disability, and then working against that. And that's constantly difficult because it's a fucked up story. And yeah, it's difficult to do education about the fact that ableism exists, that there's discrimination against disabled people, and that being disabled doesn't just play into this sad, bad event of misfortune.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I've seen you have to combat is also people don't include disability into film festivals, events, right? And then they make you do the work to make it accessible, which I was on a really cool email chain last year with infamous, where someone was like, can you figure out how to make this accessible, figure out how to get into the building, right? And Sid wrote a really cool I kind of want to put it on a pillow. It was pretty fierce and fearless, and immediately the problem got fixed. So sometimes you have to be an insufferable bitch to get what you want. And clap for that. Insufferable bitches. Any insufferable bitches in the house? Yeah, great. Okay, back to Walter. Walter, what is the most viral piece you've ever done, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. So currently, I made one with regards to tariffs. I've made several videos with regards to tariffs, desperately trying to explain to people how tariffs work, what the fuck they are, who the fuck pays them, pays for the tariff. And that I've made ones before the election, post-election, and it's always been trying to platform people that can explain things. So, me sitting in front of a camera just explaining a tariff is not as engaging, obviously, as a tariff being explained adversely. When there's adversity, there's someone pushing back on it. So that was the environment I was trying to create. I made two of the videos that did extremely well. One was with a guy who sold merchandise at MAGA rallies. He was a MAGA merch dude, and he thought the tariffs would make his merchandise cheaper. Oh. So we start there. And I was like, no, that's not how that works. And he should know better. So we went back and forth. I was like, that's not how that works. And then I had another creator come on camera and explain how this works and give the analogies and everything. And then the light bulb went off, and he's like, oh, okay, the consumer pays for it. And then it was like the person that explaining it just walked off like, Jesus Christ, why was this so difficult? Another one was a guy, just interrupted our debate. He was an importer-exporter, and he very patiently explained to this guy. This was at the inauguration in DC. He explained to him, I've been an importer-exporter for 20 years. This is not how that works. He's like, the consumer always bears the cost. In that case, that was a case of me stepping back and letting him talk and letting this conversation play out. And so that was done. That was totally spontaneous. That was by accident. It just fell out of the sky. And, thankfully.
Yeah, so that just happened, right?
That just
so,
happened.
So you lean into the right. So you pre-plan, you pre-script, but you also adjust.
Yeah, and my scripting it. I'm living in the edit. I'm thinking about the editing. How is this going to cut together? And stylistically, I want an idea to be presented adversely. It's not engaging. There's no virality to it if I'm just explaining something and everyone's in agreement, right? Like if someone just jumped up from the audience and we started arguing right now, and that in itself is a viral moment, and hopefully if we were arguing, it would be about something substantive that you can make content out of.
Right. Conflict,
Yeah.
which again, these are all lessons from storytelling in film, right? Which again, this is very short form. It's like a very, 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 very short film, but it is still, those lessons really totally apply. Josh, if there are people here who want to make money, right? And be able to live from being a creator and get paid from campaigns or political organizations, how can they do that? How does one begin to be in the mix?
I guess one of the challenges with answering that is you could just treat campaigns like Casper mattresses and make sponsored content for folks.
Right.
And there's no shame in that. It's not as bad as like a meme coin. But if you're trying to really involve yourself in a movement, I think it starts with showing up. It's like you can't just be seeking that without actually either being on the ground or already creating content that kind of works in that same content thread. There's so many people who are actively engaged and showing, not telling, what we need to do with movement building. Mm-hmm. And I think that just by nature of there's not enough good people doing that and being good communicators of that, campaigns will find you and definitely want to engage with you.
Yeah, it's just, when I found when I'm not getting work, right, I'm not getting incoming, sort of requests, it's because I'm not making content, right, in a way, right? So the more you make things, the more things will really come to you because it is...
It's also seasonal. It's like even-numbered Octobers are good times for this, and right now is... sad. Yeah.
So if you're not getting incoming, it's not your fault. Don't internalize it. But keep creating, and they're paying attention. Okay, I want to ask a controversial question to everyone. How do you make money? Because I think so many people, again, want to be creators, want to leave their 9 to 5, but are just confused about how to make money in this creator economy, which feels ever evolving and shifting. Sid, do you want to start? How do you make money?
Yeah. How explicit should I answer?
So explicit.
Okay.
So explicit.
Liquid.
OnlyFans? Go into it.
OnlyFans, yes. We make money in a pretty
No
classic...
shame, by the way.
Sure,
OnlyFans is great.
OnlyFans is
I
great.
don't want to...
We make money in a pretty classic film production way, which is that films don't make money. So there's that.
Yeah, docs don't make money, guys. I wish I'd known that.
Yeah.
But keep making them. Yeah.
There's the classic path that we follow, which is primarily spend a ton of money on one film, developing a concept, years and years into the development of it, and then hope to Christ that someone is interested in purchasing it and distributing it and doing a theatrical release, which is something that happened 15 years ago and will never happen again.
Sid, no.
That's it.
But it might change. There might be. Someone told me yesterday at a party that he was really smart, and he. No, but actually,
really smart.
Yeah, I was like, you're the coolest person here, and he predicted a new social media app, and I just threw. I was like, I can't. There cannot be another one.
Sure.
There's already enough, but there might be another one, and then that one sells documentaries at a really good price. We don't know.
Really interesting.
We don't know. Okay, so you make money through...
Sure. So there's the classic way, and then there's what film production gets into more now, which is kind of implanting your ideology in commercial work. So we also started working in making actual commercials and using...
So working with brands, right?
Yeah, working with brands and implanting that anti-ableist ideology into the work that we do.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is super simple. We just expand the visual vocabulary of who is wearing Nike shoes, for example, and then we just put disabled people in the advertisements as
Yeah.
well. Sometimes it's telling a bit more of an involved story in a way that's very approachable.
Yeah. I mean, brands are really bad at telling their own story, right?
Right.
Without it sounding self-serving. And often, sometimes, because of they don't have an outside perspective on the brand. I mean, we had,
Right.
for our film, Not So Special, Microsoft was a big funder, and they have an incredible, accessibility and disability story. And so,
Yeah.
we were, you go to the brand and you can say, let me tell your story for you, and, come up with good ideas, and you'll get the gig.
Yeah.
Okay, Walter, you are next. How do you make money?
Okay.
How much
so-
money do you make?
Okay.
No, you
so
don't have to. After that one.
there's- Okay, so you want me to say what we were saying backstage, the way we were joking?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to do that.
Do it. Why?
All right, so the driver for monetizing as a creator, your driver at the end of the day is the content you're making. You make content, and then randomly a brand is, it's going to find you and be like, you. And it will be mind-blowing sometimes because like the first, I think, branded thing I got was for like a liquor sponsor, and I was like, have you guys watched my videos? Like, you want me to, okay, like, sure. And I was kind of floored. I was like, I make very polarizing content. I thought any normal brand would kind of not want to be associated. That actually wasn't the case. I was wrong, dead wrong. People have reached out to work with me that I've been shocked by every time. And so I'm like, oh. So there's that. There's also like you're constantly having to sort of make sure you have several, like 6 to 7 revenue streams concurrently, because none of them are going to be consistent. It's like there's merchandise, there's ad revenue, there's brand deals, there's always these opportunities that just pop up, and they pop up once you're in the game and once you're releasing content and you're like enmeshed in your own community that you found online, and they sort of, those revenue streams find you figure those out based on your brand. There's some revenue streams that I have for mine that wouldn't work with other brands, because I'm like very hyper political. There are other brands that they could work by having an Amazon store. My content's very, dirty socialist content. It's not going to work to have an Amazon store, right? It's kind of a little hypocritical. So that doesn't work for me, but it might work for you, and so on and so forth, and stuff you find as you go.
What's your biggest stream right now?
Right now, I'm the biggest on TikTok, but if there's anyone from TikTok here, you guys pay shit. You're robbing creators. You robbed them. I had my most viral video when I was talking about tariffs. It had 24 million views, and you robbed every cent of it. You thieves. You terrible people. Like that, like 24 million views, that should pay like tens of thousands of dollars. And it did not pay that. You stole from me. TikTok.
Yeah.
Thank
Which
you.
platform? Okay. Love it. Yeah, they all should be paying more. And
also Instagram, you're also a bunch of thieves.
Yeah.
Meta,
Instagram,
anyone
I
from
think, is
Meta?
the biggest thief.
Yeah, so
I think they like it.
$65 per million views.
Yeah.
That, I'm sure everyone here can live off that, right? But yeah, YouTube is actually for ad rev is the best. They've been consistent. If it's for long form content, if it's the little shorts, they also are a bunch of robber barons as well. So yeah. So did I say thieves enough? Okay.
Yeah, say it one more time. Thank you. Josh, how do you make money?
I steal all of Walter's ad revenue. I think my privilege is I got out of college with zero debt, and as I try to be the first Asian Jewish correspondent on The Daily Show as a dream, I make enough to pay rent off of stand-up comedy and creating, but the real 9 to 5 is I have a creative collective called Good Political, and get to still tout the Obama magic and helping creators, and so enough causes and campaigns tap us to do that, and that's the main driver for existing and feeding myself.
Wow, that's great. So multiple income streams is what I'm getting as a common theme.
Because you don't know when each social
Yeah.
media platform is going to decide to rob you.
Yeah.
There's no love.
Yeah.
Like
Go
Instagram
hard on Google
actually
Plus.
used to pay extraordinarily well. They had something called IGTV, and it was an ad-based model. It wasn't a pool model. That used to actually be very good and sustainable because it was sustained by ad revenue, and that was good. And then they were like, no, we're gonna get rid of that. And then they did the other thing, and so on.
They said, we want more of your money.
Yeah.
So they changed it.
Keep
Yeah.
giving us your content.
You also never know when like an app is just gonna not exist anymore, right? There was the whole
Right.
TikTok scare. Does anyone? Okay, this is a throwback, but I remember making a show for an app and like on their first day of production, the app just shut down. Do you guys want to guess
Quibi?
which one it is?
Shit.
It's not even Quibi. It's older.
Oh wow.
Not Vine, but you're
No.
close. It's like in that era. Meerkat.
Classmates.com.
It was Go 90. Does anyone remember Go 90? You don't?
Verizon.
You're not real millennials. Go 90. Yeah, she does. Okay, there's one person who remembers Go 90. I had a 24 episode run, and it never aired. So check it out. Okay, so thank you so much. This was so informative. We're going to open it up to questions because I feel like you must have some. And if you don't, I'm going to call on you. So, Donald, do you have a question? Donald G, creator, amazing creator, who's doing a panel today at 4, where? Distribution Hall, woohoo, you should go check him out. Okay, wait, do we have mics for the questions?
I think you're going to have to run in the audience too.
Just so we can hear you.
Just scream it. Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, how often do you say no to a brand deal that doesn't align?
Because it doesn't align with your values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amanda, who
my
is
manager,
manager
saying, like, I
says
say no
she-
for you.
Yeah.
You know? Because that's actually a good story because there was this like conservative podcast that wanted me to promote their podcast and like pay me well. And I had this argument where I was like, can't we just take their money and I'll just do a shitty ad for them? And it was like, no, like this is bad. Why are you doing that? And I was like, but I want it both ways. I want to take their money and insult. I want to do everything and get their money. And then at the end of the day, I was like, no, like this is so antithetical. This is like, and it wasn't like it wasn't like they just happened to be conservative. No, this was like, they had like Trump cabinet members being interviewed on it. And I was like, I don't know why you thought it'd be a good fit, but this doesn't work.
How did they approach
Yeah,
you?
how did they?
I could not explain what the hell.
What video did they see that thing that thought you were?
I was
a good
like, and I had
spokesperson?
It's not satire.
I had this idea in my head where I was going to make a video just explaining exactly what they were, and to my audience, and hoping that my audience is like, "Wow, you're like really being snarky," and that the client wouldn't like get the snark.
Yeah.
But it was like, come on, like why sully your brand? Why confuse my audience? And it was like,
right.
you know.
Yeah, it's not worth the price, right? Like, because there's a price to, your audience.
And
being...
Sheen, I had a thing with Sheen once where like, and I like, this was like in the early, like before I had really heard of them, and I was like, and they came to me with this offer that was really, I was like, God damn
what?
it. And I was like, and I looked them up to be like, are they as bad as everyone says they are? And I did some research, and I was like, okay, they're actually worse than what I thought. And I was like, I threw my hands up being like, why does it have to be like the most unethical people that have like the best? This is like at the time, I was like, this is a great deal. Like, this is actually very generous. It was ongoing. And I was like, son of a bitch. And I looked up and I thought they were just bad for the environment. And then in my research, I was like, oh, they actually have like human rights abuses. And I was just like, Jesus, And then there was the big scandal where they got all those creators.
Were you invited to that trip?
It probably would have led to that because what they were doing is they were getting progressive people in there,
Right.
and people that you wouldn't normally attack. It was just this very diverse group of influencers, progressive, non-binary, all of that. People that you're not they weren't getting like,
Yeah.
MAGA conservatives. They were just sort of pinkwashing, their greenwashing, pinkwashing their campaign. They were very smart. So I was like, and then, I said no. And of course that scandal happened shortly after. And I was like, thank God I wasn't part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. There was like, does everyone know the Sheen scandal? Yes.
Well,
so
they got
basically,
like an influencer to be like, oh, look, the factories are fine.
Yeah, they're like, look at how great this is. And, it was just very...
no one was in the factory
It
at
was
all.
like the Fire Fest, of influencers. Or, I mean, there were influencers at Fire Fest too, I guess. But, okay, so Sheen, I'm still... I want to see that, but like as a parody video.
Yeah,
like, I want to see you at a
imagining-
Sheen factory.
Big shout out to the person who satirized that thing, and she made one about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Look up Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, and you'll have a proper laugh.
So I was gonna add that I'm a proud dumpling influencer.
You're a dumpling
Oh, yeah.
influencer.
Mila, it's good stuff. It's frozen dumplings. I stand by it.
Ooh.
And I think that I'm agnostic about what kind of brand deal it is. I think it's that you consider, do they value experience? Do they value your creative process? Do they value production value? Even if your skill is making it just the right amount of shitty and authentic, is this an exchange where they accept that you know your audience best and your output best, and it's not going to be too prescriptive?
Yeah, and you never regret saying no. In the moment, if you're like, oh, should I do this? Should I not do this? Like, you don't regret the no's. In that case, like if you have a gut feeling, it's probably right. I said no to a brand that gave me food poisoning. So I felt and it was like a mass food poisoning situation. I won't name the brand, but
your red line is food poisoning.
My red line is diarrhea. So
our brave stand against food poisoning as creators.
Okay, one last question. I was told there would be a clock. There is no clock. I was told that we're going rogue. I don't know how long we've been going. Yes. Okay, we have a question.
How can brands stay proactionary instead of reactionary when it comes to like brands that sit at the intersection of like business and activism when creating content, like staying consistent with the brand story, but also responding to like every single day there's so many current events. So how can we like balance that and plan for it instead of like always like, oh shit,
Great question. And I love your mask necklace. Is that what it's called? Okay, I love it. Actually, I have a response to that. But
I think you have a good one, actually. I'm thinking.
Oh, you know what I'm going to say?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're so connected. So my solution for that and what I would love to see brands do is invest. Like, let's say that you have an issue that you care about and you're aligned with. Let's say that it is LGBT. What? Oh, I have to end? Okay. Oh, we're wrapping. Okay. Hire creators, not for one-offs, right? Like, don't just like jump on a thing like, oh, everyone cares about LGBTQ stuff right now. Like, I gotta wrap. We gotta wrap. I'm getting very angry.
That's
signs. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about
invest in
brands
creators and then like
no hit it and quit it campaigns. That's what you got.
Brands and activism, get off the stage.
Invest and like a deeper investment, not just a one-off, so that you can go to that person so that it's organic, right? And you won't have to figure out how to respond to things. They're already seeped into the issue, and it's good for creators because then they have more stable.
The only thing I can say about that is I remember doing one that was incredibly timely. I did one with OkCupid years ago, and it was literally after Roe was taken. Roe v. Wade was taken away. I mean, real quick, 30 seconds, boom. Okay, so and it was me in front of the Supreme Court doing the whole viral trend of like, he's a 5, but he's an abortion clinic escort. And the girls are like, oh, he's a 10 in my book. Or like, he's a 9. And he says, why can't you go to another state to have an abortion? And girls in front of the SCOTUS being like, yeah, that's a 3, And it did not become an ad until 1 minute, it didn't become an ad until more than halfway through. And it took the brand gave me like a lot of leeway to do exactly what I want. And it didn't have to be a brand video in the beginning. Yeah. I had 45 to 1 minute and 25 seconds worth of freedom. And my audience reacted incredibly well. By the time it got to me advertising OkCupid, people were like, you know what, fine. You know what, hey, you entertained us for a minute. So that's my experience with something incredibly timely.
I love it. We are getting pushed out. They're going to start playing off the music. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists, Sid, Dylan, Josh, Walter. Thank you to our amazing audience. You were amazing. And have a great South by Southwest.